Donald, they're the 4 words that helped propel Donald Trump to the White House.
But it's called, his was, let's make America great. That's different. We are make America great again, but we're adding to it. Because we really have to add, and I'm adding, as we go along, as we get older and wiser, make America great again, make America safe again, and let it include everybody, because that's what we have.
Not everyone thought it was catchy. Many criticised his choice of slogan, labelling it divisive and potentially backward too. So what is in a slogan? That's where our masters of spin come in this morning, advertising experts Dee Madigan and Dan Gregory. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Dan, what was it about this slogan, Make America Great Again, that made it so successful?
Look, I think what it did was it spoke to some of the anger in those flyover states in the United States, people who felt that they'd been ignored, people who felt that, you know, life used to be better for them. And I think what he did very intelligently was he identified this anger that was seething beneath the surface that a lot of pollsters had missed, and he spoke to that anger and you know, gave them hope.
And it's not the first time we've heard this. I think Ronald Reagan used it in his Morning in America. You know, it's Morning in America, yeah. Make America great again. But it really cuts through. It seems simple, and people have knocked Trump for talking too simplistically, but it works.
It does. And choosing an election slogan, you know, I've done 10 elections. It's one of the hardest things on earth to do, one that actually cuts through, because normally they end up being these sort of wishy-washy kind of things. But yeah, it tapped into the fact that people believed America had been good and wasn't. So it really was just nice and simple. But, you know, I think Obama's Yes We Can was also a really good slogan. Generally, though, they're very missable election slogans.
And the first election, the slogan was Hope for Obama. And I suppose it is a similar message here, isn't it, Dan? A different kind of purpose, but the same kind of drive, that hope to give people back their jobs, to change Washington.
Yeah, it's been interesting. I spent the night reading interviews with people who showed up at the inauguration and what they were expecting to get. And what was interesting for me was what they were expecting wasn't so much. It was a little bit better. And I think that that's where it's, you know, the challenge for Trump is going to be the expectation gap between what Make America Great Again means in his mind and what the American voter who voted for him thinks Make America Great Again is going to look like. I think it's going to be hard for him to bring back a lot of those heavy manufacturing jobs. So it's going to be interesting to see how he delivers on that promise.
I hate to shatter the creative illusions, but I've seen some shockers over the years. I mean, but they still work, I guess. You know, keeping interest rates low. John Howard, it worked pretty well. Dee, on the spot.
There was one actually that was so bad it was credited with losing an election, which was, I think, the Liberal Party in 1984 had one, We're Not Waiting for the World, and it was like people were like, what even does that mean? And it was so bad. Yeah.
Is that a Michael Jackson song?
Yeah, it was like that. Yeah.
Let's talk about the Trump image, because he has such a reputation for being unpredictable, for flying off the handle. How do you change that image? He tried to be presidential today.
Well, I think it's actually worked in his favour. I mean, he's like the crazy guy at the party that no one wants to get them too angry because you're not sure what they'll do. And I think that that's been a really successful strategy for him. People have been afraid to question him, afraid to call him to account. So I think that's worked for him. And I also think the fact that he's been incredibly unfiltered in the way he used social media has really worked in his favour, because it made him look genuine and it made him look like he wasn't just saying what people wanted to hear to be elected. So I think that some of that fly-off-the-handle stuff has actually worked in his favour as well.
And how important is that, having that connectivity with social media these days, Dee?
A lot of Trump voters weren't on Twitter, but what his engagement with Twitter did was drive the mainstream news, and that's where they still are, and it drove Facebook conversations and things like that. So social media is hugely important. Twitter is a bubble, but it's actually an important bubble for controlling the narrative a little bit. Facebook's where it's all at in terms of political campaigning.
Sure.
Let's talk about Obama and Michelle Obama too. They brought some kind of swagger, some cool to the White House. Yeah. Do you think we'll ever see that again, Dee?
Not with the Trumps. I don't look at Donald Trump and think, cool. I just think, oh, he's... Yeah.
But I do anticipate some Bill Clinton-style controversy, which that'd be interesting.
Interesting.
The family, though. I mean, Americans might warm to seeing such a big family, and as long as they don't get involved too much in the politics of it, but seeing, you know, little Barron in the White House eventually, and Donald Trump as a grandfather. That must be good for your image, Dan.
Well, it's been interesting watching the commentary this morning and how much attention Barron's gotten walking alongside his father. And I think, you know, when you see those kind of images, it does soften someone. And I think that that's you know, that's a potential asset for him. He does have a young family. He does present himself as an older statesperson in that family role. And I think that will work in his favour.
So we're seeing some live pictures here of the parade going on. The President and Vice President there watching the passing parade. You know, there's young Barron. We're just talking about him, and you know, he's uncool. Yeah, but I think one of the brilliance of this campaign is he's made uncool cool. And millions of uncool people voted for this guy because they validated him. Or he validated them.
Well, I think also he connected with the disengaged voters, and people are disengaged. You know, they're not swinging voters because they're deciding who to vote for. They're completely disengaged, and because he did manage to cut through, they'd seen him on the reality TV shows. That was kind of what did it for him. Was, you know, that he didn't sound like all the politicians that tuned out from.
Yeah.
And again, he's representing the Republican Party. This is never going to be the cool party. This is the Conservative Party. So I think being conservative, being uncool, is actually a good thing from a Republican point of view.
And by all accounts, today's was a very conservative inauguration. It stuck to all of the traditions usually seen on this day. Thank you so much, Dee, and
Pleasure.
thank you,
Thanks,
Dan.
Thank you.
Don't go anywhere. Weekend Sunrise is back in a moment.
That I will faithfully execute.
I will faithfully execute
The office of President of the United States.
the office of President of the United States.
And will, to the best of my
a crisp wafer and gently roasted hazelnut pieces. Celebrate Easter with Ferrero Rocher.